If I may just make a quick introduction for Brendan. Brendan co-founded WAG, the mobile dog walking app that disrupted the global pet service space. WAG raised more than $360 million in venture capital, and most recently, Brendan raised 300 million from SoftBank's Vision Fund. And Brendan is a strong believer in the Indian startups ecosystem, and as part of is launched 2AM VC Fund, which is a fund focused on India first ventures. So glad to have you here, Brendan. Over to you, and would love to hear from you and your side of the story.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I wish I could be in Mumbai right now. I am actually booking my flights to come in early March, so very looking forward to coming back. Yeah, I'm happy to share. I don't have a formal presentation because I kind of like to kind of go off the cuff and share my experiences. And if there's any investors in the crowd that want to learn more about the Indian landscape and kind of what I've seen and through my journey, I'm happy to share that and paint a better picture. But kind of give you a quick backstory on myself and how I became obsessed with India, and how India, I think, really became a new chapter of my life, but really changed my life. So, I started my entrepreneurial journey moving to Silicon Valley in 2011 with just my friends in a suitcase, and decided that I wanted to be in startups because I grew up playing a lot of sports and I loved being on teams, and just the fact that you go a lot of ups and downs and you work together and hopefully you win, and you learn a lot of lessons from the losses. So moved to Silicon Valley and realized that there was this huge opportunity within the pet space, and specifically in Los Angeles, where I was living at the time when I started WAG, realized that in the early 2014s, there was a huge rise of the Uber for X startups, where people would basically press a button and have somebody come to your house to clean or to do whatever the case may be. In Los Angeles, there's a huge amount of people that own pets, and typically families aren't started in LA until a little bit later on. And in LA, there's a lot of traffic and stuff like that. So dogs are inside all day, and it can get really hot in LA. So why not connect dog walkers to pet parents? And that's what we did. And Los Angeles has a lot of people that are aspiring to be in entertainment. So there's a lot of people that have side jobs, and this is a great side job to get outside and walk pets and whatnot. And we launched that business, and it was a business that was a very manual, not that much technology at first, and really learned from our customers and built a trusted brand, and really started growing the user base in the LA and San Francisco area, and hired some wonderful people that gave their blood, sweat, and tears to the business. And kind of fast forward 5 years later, we as a business essentially kind of own the whole pet service platform essentially. So we started with dog walking, and we knew that if we could provide a great dog walking service that and they love us, then we could maybe upsell them to daycare or sitting and boarding or a televet or having their pet medical records. So we aspire to be the button on your phone for your pet, and that's what we did. And fast forward 5 years later, and we're one of the largest pet platforms in America, and to this day still scaling. So going from that experience to the next step was I came to a point at WAG where I was like, it's time for me to move on. And I wasn't the CEO at the time, so I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was at this like crossroads in my life. And I'm a very, very spiritual person, so I just really wanted to, follow my intuition and stuff. But I started just building my brand, and obviously everyone who's listening is here because they care about their brand or they network or whatnot. But I really doubled down on networking. I really doubled down on LinkedIn as well too. So I started kind of sharing my journey through LinkedIn and just networking with like-minded people in the startup world, whether if it's investors or founders, and just started building that brand. And as I'm sure you guys all know, India is one of the largest countries in the world for LinkedIn usage. So I started building a pretty large following in India. But it was not until I met a gentleman named Herschel Mehta, which he runs his family office in LA, and just really great, guy and personality. But we had coffee, and he was mentioning to me about his uncle Sanjay Mehta, which I'm sure a lot of maybe you guys know in the audience. He's born and raised in Mumbai, and he lives in Gokulpur, which I heard is a really cool spot, and I'm excited to go visit. But Sanjay, is a very successful angel and founder, and I just really gravitated towards his background and what he did what he did with 100X, and what he's doing was very, very interesting. So Herschel basically said, come to India and come watch the demo day, and maybe you can invest in some of these startups. And I've always been very intrigued with India because a lot of the US funds from like 2017 onwards, the larger funds started allocating a lot of capital into India. Whether if it's Tiger Global, their investment in Flipkart, or Facebook's investment, in Geo and Amazon, just kind of building a bigger presence there. There was a way more of a liking, so there was that piece. And then also during my time in Silicon Valley and in Southern California, the amount of folks that were from India that moved to the US to essentially work for these startups was obviously drastically growing. And, some of the best, if not the best engineers in the world are from India. So the technical talent is just absolutely amazing. So I just was very interested in the overall space. But not until I got to India was where I really had the aha moment where I just saw the rise of just founders solving massive pain points for Indians. It seems like a lot of things are not digitized. A lot of people are unbanked in the tier 3, tier 4 cities, and just the rise of credit card penetration and UPI. Just was fascinating to see that technology was really kind of paving the way and solving pain points. That really drew my attention. And, obviously with Geo allowing to have really cheap data plans and people adopting to technology first through their mobile was just very interesting. And it was basically very similar trends that we saw in China in the mid 2000s and stuff. Kind of fast forwarding, I, started telling Herschel, hey, we should do this fund, and realized that there's a massive, obviously, as you all know, a Gen Z population in India, and a lot of the new founders and a lot of the business models are catering towards the Gen Z audience, to say the least. And then obviously with the rise of all these new unicorns, I feel like every day there's a new unicorn in India. A lot of these engineers are starting to become fully vested, whatever the case may be. There's acquisitions, and they want to, build their own business because there's just so much capital out there, and it's like the timing could not be more perfect. So Herschel and I, we started a fund, and we are a Gen Z centric fund. We invest in all different industries. We've done companies in the fintech space, the wellness space, the ed tech space. We like to look at everything, and we see that there's a huge opportunity in all of these different sectors, just because of the amount of people that are adopting to these new platforms. And Web3 is something that we're very, very excited about. I know this is a very somewhat blockchain heavy discussion or discussions. We've invested in a couple like NFT marketplaces and things of that nature. And my partner, Herschel, was an early investor in CoinDCX. And so was Sanjay. So we're very close to the crypto space in India and very bullish on the crypto space in India. And one thing I wanted to mention was I'm seeing a lot of wonderful and very experienced blockchain engineers coming from India. And these businesses that are being launched and whatnot are going global from day one. So I think that's fascinating. And I think that there's going to be a lot more businesses in the Web3 space specifically that are going to be catering India, but also globally. And obviously, we've seen the rise of Polygon, and now there's companies all over the world building on top of the Polygon network, whether if it's metaverse games, whatever the case may be. Very bullish on that, and we think that Polygon has really paved the way for new blockchain engineers to build. And if we're going into a little bit more of a bear market, as everyone is saying, it's a really great time for these new projects to launch and engineers to start building and new founders coming about. So could not be more excited. I would love to answer anyone's questions or anything that I can share more about, being either as a founder or as an investor. I'm happy to do so. But that's what we're seeing. And I'll add that when I started to do the fund, there was, maybe a handful of seed stage funds. Now there's funds popping up everywhere. And I think that just how there's so much adoption to a lot of these products, and people are, either making more money or there's more just capital being flowed into the ecosystems. There's more early adoption to these products. So now these businesses are starting, and I think that there's going to be a lot more, obviously, capital deployment, et cetera. So we're seeing a lot of the later stage funds wanting to invest earlier and earlier. So you're seeing the Lightspeeds or the Excels that are now starting programs and stuff like that, and investing earlier and earlier, which is great for the ecosystem. And then lastly, seeing the IPO markets as well. It seems like the IPO markets are starting to more companies are starting to go public, and it seems like there's promise there and stuff like that from a liquidity standpoint. But I'll stop there. If you guys want to ask any questions, happy to answer anything you guys may have.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandon. That was exciting. Any questions for Brandon, guys? Adrian, Kat. Yep. Okay, I'll start. So Brandon, being in the United States and investing in India, there's a lot of times that people talk about the lack of clarity from the regulatory standpoint and the constant changes in the laws or unclarity in the regulatory structure in India. So what was your take on that? What was your experience? And did having Harshal Mehta as your partner really help you hedge that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that was investing in foreign businesses is always somewhat challenging. Believe it or not, I would probably say out of our 20 deals that we've done, maybe half of them are actually registered in Singapore or in the US. We've invested in companies that either are in Y Combinator, or maybe they get into like a Y Combinator, and then usually Y Combinator, well, they make you flip to a US or Singapore domiciled entity, which makes our compliance and processing way much faster. However, we have the other 50% is all Indian domiciled companies, which is totally fine. But we brought on a gentleman named Vipul Mehta, which he is basically our head of compliance. So he is essentially our guy on the ground that does all of our diligence from shareholder agreements to really seeing if the company's registered appropriately, all of that kind of like back end stuff that this fund would not be actually operational without Vipul, because we just don't know how to do that, and he's just very knowledgeable. So we kind of it is frustrating. I will say the biggest pain point that we've had is that the regulatory system sometimes can delay the fundraising piece. So like if a company's doing a round, no matter what the round size is, it can take a couple months. We did a deal the deal, I think the round was a pre-seed 250K round. And it took about 3.5 months to close it. Which in my eyes, it's unfair because it really, especially at pre-seed, it really ties the founders' hands where like they can't really move without the capital. They can't hire, they can't A/B test. So that's probably the extent that we've seen. Again, we haven't had any exits yet because we just started a couple months ago. So I'm assuming at the liquidity there'll be potentially some bottlenecks, but that's with everything. Cross that bridge when we get to it. But without Vipul and his diligence and him working specifically like with the founders from a compliance standpoint, things haven't been super rough. And I think that, and I don't really want to comment on the government, but it seems like since there's so many startups emerging that and it's pushing the economy forward and it's unlocking the minds of people to start businesses, it seems like they're almost like promoting it in a positive manner. So hopefully kind of like the time lengths to completion of fundraising kind of goes down and stuff.
Right. Awesome. And what's your take on tokenization? Like, what's the future?
Yeah, I'm like, to be honest with you, I have friends that have like funds that only invest in tokens. They don't invest in equity in the business. To be completely transparent, we have not made any investments where we're just acquiring tokens. So we're just like basically an equity driven fund. However, we are receptive of looking at deals from that perspective and investing, specifically in tokens. I'm very green in that field. I just haven't done it. We have looked at deals in the past. It's interesting, but I think the future is, I don't see why. I think from a venture perspective, it's, there's liquidity after, I don't know what typically the average lockups are for the tokens, but typically it seems like there's liquidity almost right away, which I think is really interesting.
Right.
And I think that with tokens and all this, with the companies being like, decentralized, et cetera, it seems like they can bypass a lot of like the regulatory compliance stuff to some degree and whatnot. So it seems like it's all positive. We just haven't done it yet, but I'm seeing I'm seeing more founders, I would probably say in the last month or two, that are now saying we're not raising equity or whatever. We're just are on equity. We're just, we're essentially, you're buying into X amount of tokens, et cetera. So yeah, that's interesting. Are you seeing that as well? Like just a lot of founders kind of having token sales, et cetera?
So yeah, I think we're at the brink of starting, and I was listening to a podcast by TCS. They as per the podcast, like 5.6% of the world's GDP would be tokenized by 2025, as per their survey. And so we at Unit also, we basically a token launching platform. So people can log on to our platform and create and launch your tokens in with absolute ease in a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
And it's completely decentralized, and it comes with a wallet feature, an exchange feature, a vault feature, a treasury feature, and a bank. And we're going to start running a Unit Ventures program, which is a 10-week incubator accelerator program for creating the tokens and launching the tokens most effectively. So we're scheduled to get the first batch going in Jan. In Jan 2022, we should be launching the first batch of Unit Ventures.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Yeah, I totally agree with that thesis. I think that allowing, it seemed like, and I'm not, to be completely transparent, I'm not like the biggest crypto enthusiast. I feel like the first bolt, like in 2018, I kind of missed the boat / thought it was kind of spammy in a way, but now it seems like it seemed like only a specific group of people could launch a token and to create a blockchain company. And it was like this thing where you had to be like specific type of engineer or whatever the case may be. But I love how there's platforms like yours, et cetera, that are giving me, optionality and an experience to launch their own token and to go through these programs. So, yeah, I think that the timing could not be more perfect. I mean, what I'm seeing in India is like, there's so many companies that are being funded an insane amount of money so they can kind of hire premiums for engineers, et cetera. So there's almost like a talent crunch from like seed to series A. So a lot of these seed stage startups that raise, $1 million or $2 million, it's hard for them to acquire really good engineers because a lot of these good engineers are going to the, Coinbase opened up their office in India. They're going to the Swiggies of the world, et cetera. But what's interesting is that there's a kind of like another channel of engineers that I'm seeing emerge that are saying, kind of going against the grain, and like, no, we want to focus only on blockchain, et cetera. So I believe that there's going to be a lot more amazing Web3 companies coming out of India in the next year or two. And we're already seeing it. So yeah, I think that's wonderful for the ecosystem for sure.
Amazing, amazing. Agree with you there. Uh,
Just seeing what you put in the chat. Unit Foundation, cool. Yeah, I wanted to make this super informal. If there's a majority of the folks that are listening, are there founders, investors, who's really in the audience right now?
So it's a mixed group. We have the unit community as well, and it's a global audience. Primarily founders, and I also a lot of crypto enthusiasts, and people who want to learn about blockchain, and
Very cool. Our LP base, a lot of our LP base is very in the crypto space.
Right.
So that has been wonderful. We have a couple LPs that sit on some really awesome boards that are at some big crypto companies. But yeah, I mean, so our fund, our mandate for 20MVC Fund 1 is specifically India only. So investing in Indian founders, building in India or building in India and selling globally. But if there's any interesting projects that everybody's working on, et cetera, happy to take a look from a personal perspective. But also my partner, he also manages his family office, so actively looking at deals from that perspective. There was a deal that or not a deal, but there's what we think is also really interesting is like kind of like the decentralization in real estate, on how like real estate is such like an illiquid asset, as everybody knows, but we're seeing platforms that are allowing people to invest fractionally into real estate and essentially get monthly income in either an Algorand, whatever the case may be, and whatnot. So my partner is very much into that, invested in a really awesome deal that is kind of solving that pain point and whatnot. So if there's any crypto companies that or any companies that you guys are building, that if you guys are looking to raise capital, happy to take a look and stuff like that. What's interesting is that in this, I moved to Silicon Valley in 2011, and a lot of the liquidity was from like founders or just from like exits and stuff like that, and maybe early employees at like the Facebooks of the world, et cetera. But raising this fund has really opened up my eyes globally to folks that are just obsessed and super passionate about blockchain, and the amount of liquidity that is out there, and the amount of kind of open arms and acceptance from a lot of these blockchain investors and stuff like that it's amazing to see. So, it's very, very bullish on the space. But yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So I guess so that's something that even Unit is doing, right? They're bridging the gap. So we're like taking real life businesses, real life people, and like just creating a token economy on top of something that is being done in the real world. So in fact, earlier today we had a live demonstration. We tokenized a business in Mumbai, who's a basically Uber for boats in between Mumbai and Alibag. They run their charters, and they came up with pool rides where it was primarily an unorganized sector, and you could now book a single seat in a speedboat. So what by road it's a 3 hour 4 hour drive. By boat by sea it was about 50 minutes, and now with the speedboat it's about 15 to 20 minutes of transport, and we just created tokens for them just a few hours back.
So
Yeah.
that's amazing. So does the token, so what is it, what is it powered on?
It's built on the substrate, the Polkadot network. So unit has its own blockchain. So the unit tokens has its own blockchain, and you could build tokens on top of the unit blockchain.
Got it. Very interesting. That's amazing how tokenizing, real world businesses. I love that. I think that is, yeah, that's like, so basically if you can essentially go online and just essentially, or wherever, and is it on the website, then you just book with the Polkadot token? Is that how that works? Or no, yeah.
Right. With the unit token. We're happy to give you a demo also. It's like,
Cool.
yeah.
When I come back to India, I would love to, I would love to go on the speedboat and go check out the city. I think that'd be really cool. What do you guys think? Can I ask a couple questions or no?
Please, by all means.
Yeah. So, what is kind of everyone's take on the metaverse? It seems like there's all this hype, obviously with Facebook kind of igniting it, but even before that, metaverse, but more so gaming where you can play and earn at the same time, and also acquiring NFTs within the games and kind of, harvesting your crops or building your characters and stuff like that. I'm seeing a lot of some of my friends are investing heavily in those types of businesses. It seems like we're very early there, but has that boat sailed from like a investment perspective? And should I be looking at other areas of blockchain besides that? Just, some quick thoughts on that would be great.
I personally, Joe is would Joe. Let me unmute you.
Yeah, I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to hear more about your thoughts, and great to connect, Joe, on just like, the metaverse and within gaming, like playing to earn and, acquiring the different game characters or weapons or skins as NFTs, etc. What are your thoughts on this? And like, are we just at the tip of the iceberg here?
Well, I mean, it's certainly, the tokenization of everything, including in games and the metaverse and the general sort of in the world. I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg for that, for sure. And like, for example, I don't know if Ankur, have you been talking about Unit during this talk? I just joined.
We had a chat about Unit and what Unit is doing.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I mean, the NFT craze is like it's interesting as like a tokenization, sort of like initiation for people, but just non-fungible token is not necessarily the thing for tokenizing everything. If you can create a fungible token for something, and with Unit we have fungible tokens essentially for like, and we'll have that the ability to, I mean, further down the line, to trade fungible tokens on a gaming platform or a metaverse platform. But essentially, like with Unit, you can create your own token and store the value there for whatever it is, like if your salary or from a business you have, and you essentially go public right away. So it's a better storage vehicle for your income than like a bank account where you're just loaning to the bank. Now it's like you have this token and you can make a market in it in a decentralized exchange, and just have this exchange give you a price, and basically like your income is now public. Like you're buying Apple at 30 times earnings, you can buy Brendan at 10 times salary or 30 times salary, 100 times salary or whatever. So
very interesting.
Yeah, so those tokens will be available, very quickly. But as far as where they'll be available, in these various gaming platforms and metaverse and stuff. That's a little bit further down the line, but we're
Got it.
tokenizing the real world and real income, real, things that people are doing in a way that almost nobody in the world's heard about yet. And I think they're just about to.
Is it more so tokenizing, when you say real world businesses? So they gave us the example of the company that is essentially the speedboat company. What other examples just be like, just mom and pop businesses and stuff like that? Like, are we talking about like, what about like local? Oh, the links are right there. Okay, great.
No,
I'll
I need to unmute him. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was asking Ankur to unmute, and there's a dog in the background. I apologize, it's barking. Yeah, no, everything. Basically, the long tail of anyone, a personal token. I mean, now to this point, it's been, with that boat example. I was listening to that a little bit. Brett really focused on the crowdfunding aspect, which is it's an interesting part of the platform. But I think the real driver is that the very long tail of any income stream, any personal salary or business or whatever. It's just you go public right away without having to, very few entities in the world have the capital and the regulatory might or the legal expertise and being in a country where you can go public, where they spend millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, and do a bunch of hoops to jump through, and then they go public on a centralized exchange. Well, if you create a token in 5 seconds, you can create a market. You can create the token, and then like maybe a few more minutes, you can create a liquidity pool where you can pair Brendan with USDU, which is the pairing on Unit Network. So it's the dollar on the Unit Network. And then basically you could sell tokens right away. But the idea, I don't think, is the first thing you don't do is not create a token that you're selling. You create a token that's a repository for value, you create a valuable token, and then you can sell some of it if you want to. So I think that will really drive tokenization process rather than the push. It'll be the pull of demand because, hey, if I have my salary, Neil's jumping on. So take one more minute of your time there, Neil. Sorry. If you have let's say you're making $1 million a year, you have 100,000, Brendan tokens you have that you created. Now it's $10 per token of value that is you're putting in this treasury, which is kind of like a repository for dividends. Anyone who owns the Brendan token can access the treasury and take that portion out. So it's like a floor price. You're paying them a dividend, but it won't trade at the floor price. It'll trade at something above that, like basically like a stock does, like 30 times or 100 times or whatever. However many people are in that market, you got 300 million stock buyers, 106 billion people in the world have smartphones. They can buy into a token. So I think that it's a really exciting series of developments that Unit's creating. And so we've got this treasury and then this vault and a whole bunch of cool stuff, but I don't want to take too much time.
Great. And I appreciate whoever shared the links. Praven, thank you. And thank you for the answers, Joe. I really appreciate that.
Sure.
It looks like Neil's going to start, but guys, thank you so much for this quick conversation. It was great. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Brendan P. Rogers. Would love to connect with everyone and looking forward to what you're building and stuff. So thanks again for everyone's time and enjoy the rest of your day and evening. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brendan, for coming. And I look forward to meeting you in March.
Yes.
Our meeting at the Cricket Club of India. That's happening. Yeah. And
Yes.
and now the ride on my boat ride to Alibag.
Yes, let's go. I can't wait. I am beyond excited. I'm counting the days until I'm back in India. So thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you in person. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.